April 18, 1955. Princeton, New Jersey. The world's greatest genius lay dying in a hospital bed. Albert Einstein, the man who unlocked the secrets of time and space, who gave us the theory of relativity, who changed our understanding of the universe itself, was taking his final breath. But within just a few hours of his death, something unthinkable would happen. His brain would vanish without a trace, stolen in broad daylight, beginning a 43-year mystery that would shock the scientific world and raise questions about ethics, obsession, and the price of genius. Princeton Hospital, April 18th, early morning hours. The greatest mind in human history had just gone silent. Albert Einstein, 76 years old, had died from a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm. Internal bleeding had claimed the man who had revolutionized physics, who had fled Nazi Germany, who had helped create the atomic age, and who had spent his final years searching for a unified theory of everything. The world mourned. Newspapers prepared their headlines. Scientists everywhere felt they had lost their guiding light. But in the basement of Princeton Hospital, something extraordinary was about to unfold. Dr. Thomas Stoltz Harvey was the chief pathologist at Princeton Hospital. 42 years old, methodical, precise, the kind of man who believed that science demanded answers to every question. When Einstein's body was brought down to the morgue that morning, Harvey knew he was about to perform the most important autopsy of his career. But what he didn't know was that this single decision would consume the rest of his life, destroy his marriage, end his medical career, and turn him into one of the most controversial figures in the history of science. The autopsy began at 10 in the morning. Harvey worked methodically, documenting every detail of Einstein's body. The cause of death was clear. The aortic aneurysm had indeed ruptured. But as Harvey stood over the body of the man who had conceived E=mc², who had imagined riding alongside a beam of light, who had visualized the curvature of space-time itself, he made a decision that would change everything. Without consulting Einstein's family, without seeking permission from Princeton University, without any legal authority whatsoever, Harvey removed Einstein's brain from his skull. The brain weighed exactly 1,230 grams. Completely average for a man of Einstein's age and build. Nothing extraordinary about its size or initial appearance. But Harvey was convinced that somewhere within those folds of gray matter lay the physical secrets of genius itself. How else could one man's mind have comprehended the fundamental workings of reality? How else could Einstein have seen what no human had ever seen before? Harvey carefully photographed the brain from every conceivable angle: front, back, left side, right side, top, bottom. 46 photographs in total, capturing every ridge, every fold, every surface detail of what was perhaps the most important organ in human history. But Harvey wasn't finished. Over the next several hours, working alone in his laboratory, he made another shocking decision. Using a standard brain sectioning protocol, Harvey carefully sliced Einstein's brain into 240 individual pieces. Each fragment was embedded in a transparent plastic-like substance called celloidin, then mounted on glass slides like specimens in a natural history museum. The brain that had conceived the theory of relativity, that had wrestled with quantum mechanics, that had spent decades searching for a unified field theory, was now scattered across hundreds of microscope slides. When Princeton University officials discovered what Harvey had done, they were horrified. This wasn't scientific research. This was theft of the most audacious kind. Einstein's son, Hans Albert, was furious. He had never given permission for his father's brain to be removed, let alone dissected and studied. The Einstein family demanded the immediate return of the brain. Princeton Hospital fired Harvey on the spot. But by then, it was too late. The brain specimens were already in Harvey's personal possession, and he had no intention of giving them back. In 1956, just 1 year after the theft, Harvey packed up his entire life and fled Princeton. He loaded boxes containing Einstein's brain into his car and drove west to Kansas, where he took a job at a small medical laboratory in Wichita. For Harvey, this wasn't theft, this was preservation. He believed he was protecting the most important brain in history from institutional bureaucracy and scientific politics. But the cost of his obsession was becoming clear. His wife, Eloise, couldn't handle the scandal and the constant pressure. Their marriage crumbled. Harvey's reputation in the medical community was destroyed. Former colleagues wouldn't return his calls. Job opportunities dried up. But Harvey held on to those brain specimens like they were the most precious treasure on Earth. He stored them in mason jars in his basement. Later, when he moved to a smaller apartment, he kept them in a closet. When he moved again, they went with him. Through 3 marriages, multiple job changes, and decades of moves across the American Midwest, Einstein's brain remained Harvey's constant companion. Neighbors had no idea that the most famous brain in history was sitting in ordinary glass containers just a few feet away from their dinner tables. Meanwhile, neuroscientists around the world were desperate to study Einstein's brain. What made him so brilliant? Were there physical differences that could explain his extraordinary intellect? The few researchers who managed to convince Harvey to share small samples made fascinating discoveries. Dr. Sandra Wittelson at McMaster University found that Einstein's parietal lobe, the region responsible for mathematical and spatial reasoning, was 15% larger than normal. Dr. Nancy Diamond discovered that Einstein had significantly more glial cells than average. These support cells help neurons communicate more efficiently. Each study raised more questions than it answered. By the 1990s, Harvey was in his 80s. The secret that had defined his life was becoming a burden too heavy to bear. Reporters were tracking him down. Documentary filmmakers wanted to tell his story. The weight of decades of secrecy and controversy was crushing him. In 1998, 43 years after he first stole Einstein's brain, Harvey made a final decision. He loaded the remaining brain specimens into the trunk of his car and drove back to Princeton. At the University Medical Center, he walked into the office of Dr. Elliot Krauss, the current chief pathologist, carrying a simple shopping bag. "I've been the keeper of Einstein's brain," Harvey said quietly, setting the bag on the desk. "I think it's time to give it back." The most audacious theft in scientific history was finally over. Harvey died in 2007, taking his true motivations to the grave. But his 43-year obsession had given science unprecedented insights into the physical basis of genius. Today, Einstein's brain remains at Princeton, finally receiving the systematic study it deserved. The question still haunts us. Was Harvey a thief who stole precious scientific material? Or was he a guardian who preserved humanity's most important brain for future generations? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere between theft and preservation, in the gray matter that continues to reveal its secrets, one microscopic slide at a time.